Hi guys, it's Jared here. I hope you've all had a wonderful weekend and you're ready to get back to the markets. It's Sunday night and it is time to get prepared for the coming week. We've got quite a big week. We're going to talk about some of the news announcements and some of the setups that are to come. I wanted to try something a little bit different tonight. Oftentimes regularly we do a UK Open session, and some are able to attend and some aren't, and there's some good information that's given out, and so I've decided that I'm just going to record a little video a couple hours before the UK Open on this Sunday night, post it for all to see at your convenience throughout the next several hours for the UK Open for Sunday night / Monday morning, and the US Open Monday morning, and this will take the place of our UK session for tonight only. We're going to just try to test this out and see how it goes. So we'll get right to it. Here are some things that I'm looking at. We're right at the beginning of the week, and sometimes it's a little bit tough to really get a good feel for what the market's going to do for the coming week. So let's just look at some of the obvious things that we can see and kind of go from there. First of all, you can see that U.S. markets have kind of made a decent comeback. The Dow's back, nicely above 15,000. It dipped down there below 15,000 for a little bit, but it had a strong close on Friday, 147 points up. S&P had a strong close as well, and oil is nicely over $100 now, which it's been under for I don't even know how many months, but months and months and months and months. So this is pretty typical for summer. We usually see that kind of thing happen. Okay, coming into the U.S. markets, into the news announcements. Before we get to the U.S. markets, you can see that we've got a little bit of announcement action on Sunday night. We've already seen this. This was the current account for Japan. And then going into Monday, we've got some Eurogroup meetings. And then Monday morning, we've got some testimonies coming from Draghi of the European Central Bank. And I'm going to be here just kind of watching this Monday morning to see how the markets are moving and what we're seeing set up. But we've got him testifying in Brussels at the European Central Bank on a couple of matters. So we'll see how that behaves. That'll be at 5:30 a.m. and at 6:30 a.m. Pacific. So we're going to kind of peek in here and see how things are looking and what's going on there. And then we've got a little bit more news out of New Zealand and China on Monday. Tuesday, we've got a couple of the good old announcements, some consumer sentiment, manufacturing production, trade balance out of China. That trade balance can definitely get the Aussie pairs moving. So Aussie dollar, Aussie yen, Aussie CAD, any of those pairs will most likely feel this trade balance report if it comes out much more different than expected. Coming into Wednesday, we have the FOMC meeting minutes. That's huge. Bernanke speaks. That's huge. And then in the evening, we have employment numbers out of Australia. That's huge. So Wednesday is going to be a big day all across the board for pretty much most of the day. And then coming into Thursday, nothing too big. Unemployment claims pretty regular. Friday, we have the PPI and the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment. Nothing too major there. But pretty much Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are going to be some pretty big days. So we'll keep our eyes on those setups and on those moves, and we'll see where things go coming up here. Okay, so coming into the euro dollar, a couple of things to look at here. The Euro's obviously made some pretty nice little runs down here. As we can see, now 2 weeks back, we've got a pretty intense missed weekly pivot that's all the way up here at about 131.80. So that's a good little distance up there. At this point, it's nearly 300. It's about 370 pips up there. We've had this pretty nice run down this trend line, and it's moving fairly well. And it's right back in the middle of this trend line, so there's actually plenty of room for this to continue down. We're hitting some pretty significant support. You can see that our lows back here in May, it looks like our lowest point was about just a couple of pips below 12800. Looks like we got all the way down to about 127.95, 95, 96. And then we have some lows back here of April and May that are down here at basically around 127.45. So these are going to be some next big targets. We're sitting kind of stuck here at about 12800. But remember, we're right into the lows of last month. Pretty big double bottom here. We've got some missed pivots, some good reasons. Missed pivot from 2 weeks ago, and then we currently have a missed pivot here. So these are going to be some pretty good reasons why we might see a little bit of a bounce, but a continuation down. So ultimately, I'm looking on the euro dollar to trade the break of 12800. Ideally, what I would like to see happen is I'd like to see this 12800 hold and give us a chance to get up into at least this missed weekly pivot here, which is around 128.75. So it's not super far away. It's about 60 pips away, but if we can get a run up into this general area, I'm going to start looking for opportunities to short this euro. Anywhere between 128.50, 128.75 to short the euro and start targeting the break of 12800. So that's what I'm going to be looking for, at least to start things off here. So let's watch for a bounce. Let's get on some small time frames here and confirm some of these bounces and some of these smaller breaks to the upside with just some really short-term trend lines. You can see it. This little guy right here is holding in there pretty well. It's been tested several times. I'm on the 15-minute chart. This is the double kind of triple bottoming of 128.05-ish. And you can see that we've tested this several times on this 15-minute chart. So a little break above this, which could be somewhere around 128.20, might start working us up into some of these slightly bigger upper targets here, like the weekly pivot point. So let's be watching for that. Ultimately, I would like to see a smaller break to the upside that could potentially get us into this weekly pivot and even a little bit higher, because remember, we've got a missed daily pivot all the way up here, but this market looks like I could be surprised, and I'm going to leave that option as a possibility. I could be surprised with a slightly larger movement up because we have a missed daily pivot at 129.30, around 129.30 from Friday, and a missed weekly pivot at around 128.70, 77, 78 from the start of this week. So there's some good targets. So what I want to once again encourage is watch for reversal candles up here. Ultimately, again, I did mention 128.50. I would really rather wait for, the 128.75 area, which is the weekly pivot. Look for a reversal candle there, any kind of, little shooting star, any kind of pin bar of any sorts that might get us an entry to start trading down. Now this daily pivot at 129.30 can and should get hit sooner than later, but it might be a little bit later than sooner. So let's be prepared to short off of these highs, either the weekly pivot or the daily pivot. Let's just watch and look for those reversal candles. This daily pivot would put us definitely at the top of that trend line, and the weekly pivot puts us kind of right at that midpoint. And I'm going to be looking at that area for those reversal candles, and then that trade, that break of 128.100 and that move into 127.50 and 127.100. So let's watch for that. Be careful on getting faked out on this break here. If this just starts to move down and breaks, let a 1 hour candle open below. Make sure that we get an open below that, and let's start shorting that with highs above the most short-term weekly highs that we have for this week, which are around 128.30-ish area. So again, let's be ready to potentially trade the break of the Friday low, which is 128.05. But ideally, what I'd like to see is an opportunity to short at or around the weekly pivot or the daily pivot. And again, that daily pivot's around 129.30, and the weekly pivot's around 128.75. So that's what we're going to be looking at. Let's run over to the euro or the pound dollar real quick. We have a nice missed weekly pivot on the pound dollar as well, and a daily pivot. The daily pivot is way the heck up here. It's at 151, about 151.15, and the weekly pivot is way down here around 149, just below 149.70. So we've got some pretty big upper targets here. I'm looking for the exact same thing on this pound dollar. If you switch down to the 15-minute chart, I'm starting to watch for this kind of a thing right here. Nice little descending trend line on the 15-minute chart. It's already broken above that. We're only about we're just shy of 20 pips above the low right now. So this low, as you can see, is around 148.55. If this can hold, then we're looking for that move up into the weekly pivot. Now remember, this weekly pivot is also the 23% fib from this high to this low. We took a nice short on this pound dollar and rode some of that down and made a nice little 80 pip run, and it has bottomed out here just a little bit on the short term at around 148.55. And if we can hold above this, then I'm looking to get at least up into that 149.50-60, which is the weekly pivot. At this area, which once again is also the 23% fib, let's look for some, reversal candles. But honestly, I would get into this without even seeing a reversal candle, because we know if this starts to open above the 23% fib, then I'm going to get out and take hopefully a small loss. and then reverse my position and look for opportunities to get long up into this 38 and potentially up into this 50% fib here and make my way up into that daily pivot point. So remember, let's just look at getting short around 149.50, 149 40, 50, 60 area. And again, if this opens above the 23% fib, which is 149.60, then let's just wait a little bit. We should have an opportunity for some retracement to get out at a small loss or even break even, and then look for opportunities to reverse our position and get long, targeting 150, 30 area, and ultimately even 151.15, which is a possibility. So let's look for that. And again, if we don't get any of that retracement and this just breaks this low of 148.55, then let's be ready to trade that break as well. Now, one thing is, we've been in this channel for a couple of weeks. We've broken out of this channel. The pound looks a little bit oversold, and there's a really good opportunity for this to come up. You can see that 23% fib and that weekly pivot point and so on is right at the bottom of this descending channel here. So a nice little bounce up into that area would be a perfect place to get short and sell the bounce. So ultimately, my most favorite, at least at this point, is to get short around 149.50, 60. And target at least the lows of 148.50, 60, which would be a nice little 100 pip run, and potentially beyond. But keep in mind, let's look at this right here. We have March of 2013 of this year with a low of 148.33-ish. Let's just double check on that, make sure we have that exactly right. Yeah, 148.30. 148.30 is our low, and we're turning around right around that area. So there's some very significant support. Remember, we're in summer markets, and it's possible to see these things bounce. So my ultimate opinion would be hold off and wait for that. Wait for that bounce. I would stay away from the break just yet. Look for that bounce, that opportunity to get short around 149.60 before taking that break. We should have a great opportunity on the pound dollar there. So let's look at that. Remember, we have a missed weekly and a missed daily pivot. Aussie dollar, just quickly here, the Aussie dollar is giving us some interesting stuff. We're nicely in this channel here, this kind of shorter term channel of all of June and the first part of July here. We're at the top of the channel, remember, so we have a lot of room for this to potentially go down. We're not very far from the weekly pivot point at this point. We're about 50 pips away. We don't have any missed daily pivot points anywhere nearby. We've got a nice double top just on Thursday and Friday here at around 91.80. And so we're just kind of in this general area. Now, I was considering, and I still kind of am considering, a buy off this double bottom. You can see that our low of last week was 90.30, about 90.35, and there's not a whole lot to compare it to. You know, if you go way out here, you can see that there's some consolidation back in 2010 in this area, in 2009, and some in 2008 and 7. So we're getting into old territory here, and the Aussie dollar is getting a little bit on the oversold side. So let's look for those opportunities for this to run up into the weekly pivot. But again, I'm leaning towards opportunities to short as well. And you can see that we've got a lot of resistance up here. We've got some missed weekly pivots that are just about 50 pips up, which again, that weekly pivot is around 90, just shy of 9100. And so I'll be looking for opportunities. I'll be looking for reversal candles. I'm not just going to take this order. Something like the pound dollar, I would just take. The Aussie dollar, I'm going to look for a reversal candle right here and around this weekly pivot, see if we can get that and an opportunity to take this back down to the lows and hopefully through the lows. But right now we're kind of double bottoming and just kind of hitting this area. And this could be decent support. You could take your chances. We're only a couple of pips off it. We're less than 10 pips off that low of buying off that low. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to wait and see if this thing spikes up and gives us a chance to short that weekly pivot. So that's what I'll be looking for there. The Aussie yen, kind of messy. I'm really not doing anything with that one just yet. Euro yen, something to just quickly note here. pretty good support around 128.50-ish area. 50.60 has had some pretty nice support. We bounced off that a good couple of times, which is a weekly pivot, and then we've just broken above this descending trend line right here and made our way up there. If we start working our way back down to this trend line and back down to this area, I would look for an opportunity to buy the euro yen on the dip against these lows. And the current lows are around, again, about 128.50. So buy against these lows if we can get back down and test this trend line that it's broken out of, and just get long again against those lows. And that's kind of about the only thing I'm looking for on the euro yen for the moment. We have a really nice reversal candle right here. We have some long tail hammers and some good reversal candles of this area, so I really do like getting long against 128.50, 60 area, but on a bit more retracement. You can see that we're currently at about 129.50, so I'd like to see this retrace 60, 70 pips, somewhere in there, 80 pips even, to get a little bit closer so that we're not risking so much on this, and look for those entries to get long there. Pound yen is semi-interesting in that we've had this nice channel kind of running up. It broke out of the channel. Pretty strong reversal candle right there, but I think we might have a good opportunity to short this pound yen against the highs of Friday, which are about 151.10. So I'm going to be watching for that. We're currently 70 pips or so off of that, but let's see if we can get a little retracement and an opportunity to short off this weekly pivot and this ascending trend line that we broke out of. So those are kind of the things I'm looking for right now. The yen pairs are a little bit messy, but I think there's some good opportunities there. Aussie dollar looks really good. Pound dollar looks really good. Euro dollar looks really good, especially if we can get some bounces, short off some of those levels, and be ready to go. But remember, we've got some strong levels, so be liquid in the market. Don't be too married to any position, and have your stops and money management set. And very best of luck. I'm going to check in a little bit on Monday morning and see how everything's gone, and I'll update the details. Thanks a bunch, everybody. We'll see you in the chat.